Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, the Dodgers won a game in what Dontrelle Willis and Jerry Hairston referred to as a playoff-like atmosphere, pounded the Rockies. They got a little help from the umpire after getting a little, whatever the opposite of help is, from that same umpire. I have some thoughts on that. We'll talk about the dugout atmosphere, JD Martinez breaking through, and Max Muncy's struggles so far this season. That's what's on tap, so let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Or even better, go ahead and subscribe wherever you're watching and listening right now, and then you will never miss a day because you know we're not going to. If this is your first time with us, I am Jeff Snider. That guy next to me is Vince Samperio. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans just like you are, and we've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And Vince, this game looked like a pitcher's duel at the beginning. It was the Dodgers were up 2-0 going into the fifth inning. Thought it was maybe going to be a uncharacteristic pitcher's duel, mostly aided by the wind that was blowing straight in and doing some weird stuff. Chris Taylor had powered a 2-run homer through the wind, and we thought we might not get much more scoring than that. And then after that, let's see, 15 more runs scored from the fifth inning to the end of the game. And 11 of those, the umpire helped with, which I'll talk about in just a minute. But little updates on a couple things. Miguel Vargas took a pitch off the right thumb. He stayed in the game. And after the game, Dave Roberts said that Vargas insisted on staying in the game and had full range of motion and full strength. And so they're not planning on getting any x-rays. The range of motion and strength pretty much guarantees there's no fracture. Obviously, there still could be a lot of soreness. And so we'll see how he wakes up on Tuesday morning and if he's able to play Tuesday with the day off on Wednesday. Vince, I wouldn't be surprised if they I know Vargas just had a day off the other day, but if they play it safe and give Vargas a day off, which would be 2 days to rest that thumb.
Yeah, and realistically, there's no reason for them not to do that other than, Vargas might want to play, but, they can get by with setting them for a day just in case, letting them take those 2 days and get back to it and ice it up. One real quick note on the actual game. It's for sure top 3. Recency bias, I don't know. It might be top 1. Coldest game I ever been to at Dodger Stadium. And it wasn't like the temperature wasn't that cold. Oh, not for me. But the wind just really added to it. And you couldn't really escape it unless you were in like the bars under the pavilions or something like that. So yeah, it was an interesting game. And they're giving away a hooded sweatshirt tonight. Probably would have been better suited to give it away last night.
Yeah, although I have you checked the weather? Is it going to be warmer tonight?
No, but I don't think it's supposed to be that windy.
Yeah. Joe Davis and Oral Hershiser talked about how cold it was. And Joe was born and raised in Michigan. Oral was born in Michigan and later moved to Buffalo, New York. So if they think it's cold, it must have been pretty cold. It's colder here where I am, but I was inside my house sitting on my couch watching the game. And so it was warmer for me than it was for you. Kind of crazy. And Dave Roberts said after the game, he wasn't expecting that much offense because of the wind. Definitely wasn't expecting the home runs. And Dodgers hit 3 homers, one by Chris Taylor, one by Jason Heyward. He got his first hit as a Dodger, an infield single, and then later his first home run as a Dodger. Another reason why it might make sense to sit Vargas is because you move Mookie to second base, and that way you can get both Peralta and Heyward in the lineup, an outfield of Peralta, Outman, and Heyward against, what's his name? Herman Marquez. I think that's who's pitching. And so, a couple of reasons why maybe they let Vargas sit for a game. And then Will Smith had a 2-run homer late in the game. It was just a really good game. That fifth inning, though, I've got to talk about this. And I wasn't going to rant about the umpire because originally he cost the Dodgers 4 runs, and we don't know what he actually cost them. What we do know is the Dodgers had to strike him out, throw him out, double play. Should have been 2 outs with nobody on base. The umpire instead called the pitch ball 4, and so instead it was first and second, nobody out. Rockies went on to score 4 runs that inning. We don't know for sure that Mark Carlson is the reason they scored all 4 runs, but they definitely wouldn't have scored 4 if he was better at his job, because 2 of the guys who scored would have been sitting on the bench in the dugout. So at most they would have scored 2, and chances are 0, because you play things differently when you have nobody on and 2 outs than first and second, nobody out. It was really frustrating, and I wasn't going to bring it up because it feels like sour grapes. So I was very glad the next inning when he handed the Dodgers 7 runs. So this doesn't feel like sour grapes because the Dodgers benefited more than the Rockies did. And so I just want to say, I can't wait for robot umpires, because, in the Dodgers half of the 5th, the first 2 guys get out. Chris Taylor and Mookie Betts both get out. Freddie Freeman hits a 2-out double, which is what Elias Diaz's double should have been, a 2-out, nobody on double in the top of the inning. And then Will Smith on a full count should have struck out looking, and the umpire called it ball 4. And then Muncy walked, and eventually, I think after that, they got like 5 straight hits, including a homer and a triple and maybe another double in there. Just the offense exploded after the inning should have been over. And yeah, maybe you say it evens out, blah, 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 blah. But like, I can't wait until we have a version of baseball that is between the baseball players. Like, I want the pitcher against the hitter, not the pitcher against the hitter and the umpire. And it doesn't seem like that should be controversial. Like, we have the technology to get strike calls right. We should use it. And Rob Manfred last week said that the version of the automated strike zone that really appeals to him is the challenge system, where teams can challenge calls. It's like, leave it to Rob Manfred to choose the stupidest implementation of the technology that we have. We don't need our balls and strikes to be gamified, Fred Rodman. Like, if it's a ball, call it a ball. And if it's a strike, call it a strike. I don't need you to, hey, let's let that guy who's blocked by a 220-pound guy who has the worst view in the stadium, let's let him make the call, and we'll lead it up to the hitter to challenge if you thought that the umpire missed the call. What a stupid way to do it. Baseball's good enough. We don't need our balls and strikes to add intrigue to the game. Baseball is already really good as a sport. I don't need more intrigue and strategy, blah, 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 with regards to balls and strikes. Vince, how do you feel about this? Obviously not as strongly as I do.
Yeah, not as strongly. I mean, I am strongly in favor of the robot umps, and I think when you hear robot umps, I think people don't understand what we're really just mentioning, or what we're really just thinking of and are referring to is automated ball and strikes. And it's not like, well, there's not going to be a physical robot out there. There's not going to be, we're not removing the umpires from the field. The umpire's still going to be back there because there's still other calls in place to be made, but it's just automated balls, strikes, and the human element part of it. And I've gotten into arguments about this with like uncles and stuff about, it's like, okay, the human element was cool back in, 1900 when there was no technology to do it. But for now, especially guys are coming in throwing 100 pretty much every inning after the 5th, 6th inning when you got relievers. It's not like umpires. There's not a set of umpires that have evolved through time that have better vision, better whatever. No, it's the same people that have been calling this since back then, but now it's different. And, why not just take that part out of the game? You don't need a human element. Just get the call right. And there's still a human element of them making calls in the other part of the game. And you can't challenge every single play, realistically. So there's still going to be that human element, but it doesn't need to be balls and strikes, because not only does it affect the game, and obviously it can affect it in positive or negative fashions for your favorite team, but there's just no reason to have it.
Yeah. I get my human element from the baseball players. Mookie Betts and Jason Heyward and Will Smith and Freddie Freeman gave me a lot of human element tonight. I don't need it from freaking Mark Carlson. I don't care if that dude's a human. Give me a robot instead of Mark Carlson, an actual physical robot that looks like Rosie from the Jetsons. That's who I want calling balls and strikes instead of Mark freaking Carlson.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to come back in a minute, and we're going to talk about things that don't make me as angry, things that make me happy, like JD Martinez turning the corner and the Dodgers dugout acting like it was a playoff game. So thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Do you ever buy tickets to sporting events? I do. And as you know, we're talking to Dodger fans. I suspect you guys sometimes might want to go to Dodger games. Maybe you want to go to a bobblehead night and you want to wait until the ticket prices go down because, you know, people, secondary market can go crazy on a Julio bobblehead night, for example, like we had on Monday night. Well, get the Gametime app, and then you can get last minute deals on tickets when people on the secondary market see, oh crap, my tickets didn't sell, and they drop their prices. Guess what? That's when you're going to get your deal, and Gametime can get you that deal. They got flash deals, last minute tickets, easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. It's not just baseball games, anything, images of the seat views, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation, job loss protection, et cetera, et cetera. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. And like I said, the Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. So snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, we are back. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. It really does mean a lot to me and Vince. We love talking Dodgers with you guys, and we love that you are here with us. If you're watching on YouTube right now, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the YouTube comments section. If you're listening on the podcast, we'd love to hear from you through social media or email or whatever. We'll give you all that contact info at the end like we always do. But Vince, after the game, while you were driving home, I was watching the post-game show, and Jerry Hairston and Dontrell Willis talked about the atmosphere in the dugout and during this game, and they said it was almost like a playoff atmosphere. And you could see, after at one point, Mookie Betts, I don't even remember which play it was. It might have been after Heyward's home run. Mookie Betts in the dugout was going crazy, like acting like a little kid who, my son, he plays 12U. And when somebody hits a home run in 12U, the whole team goes crazy. They run out to the plate. You know, they're all just so excited for that kid. That's how Mookie Betts was acting, and the whole team was acting in the dugout with these runs. And James Outman after the game said that JD Martinez got him fired up. That JD's big hit led to Outman's triple, and basically you could see how excited they were for Heyward after his home run. Those two guys. And maybe it's because they are new, and Heyward has had so many struggles, so many well-documented struggles the last several years. JD has struggled all spring and hadn't really got it going yet, even though he had one home run earlier this season. Hasn't really gotten it going yet. Dave Roberts said after the game he feels like JD might have turned a corner. I don't know, just everything seemed to kind of come together. And I wonder if the cold weather played into it too. Like, it's like, well, it feels like October. Let's act like it's October. But it was a really cool atmosphere, and they noticed it, and I noticed it. Did you notice it from the stadium?
Yeah, funnily enough,
it is now.
Yeah, it's funny that they mentioned like playoff atmosphere when the big knock on the Dodgers last year was that they didn't bring the energy in the playoffs, and obviously this can kind of lean into what we've talked about is, well, if the Dodgers were scoring more runs, their dugout would have been more excited and more into the game. I still think there is an element where the Dodgers were maybe a little bit too, whatever, that's past. But yeah, this game was fun, and it's one of those where, you expect Mookie Betts, you expect Freddie Freeman to do this stuff, and to a certain extent, you probably expect JD Martinez to do things. But everything we've heard about him from anyone, Mookie's. He, already calls him his best friend, and he was very excited to get him here. Miguel Vargas has worked with them and been at his side a lot early on in this season and throughout the spring. And, everything we hear about JD Martinez has been positive, not just here with the Dodgers, but in the past. So, there's excitement there. Jason Heyward's one of those guys where, has a chip on his shoulder. He personally has a chip on his shoulder, and the guys know that, and your teammates know that. And, he started off spring kind of hot with those 2 home runs and then kind of cooled off. And, you're not entirely sure Then we found out that Heyward gave every player in the dugout or in the clubhouse a bottle of wine. So, he's one of those guys who's, people are going to like you when you do that type of stuff. So that gets it going. Outman and Vargas, like we talked about on yesterday's show, just bring a little bit of that element of surprise to a certain extent. Like, Outman hitting 2 doubles in one game. That's not something you normally see at Dodger Stadium.
Triples.
Oh, triple. That's what I meant. 2 triples in one game. That's not something you normally see at Dodger Stadium. That's fun. Just missed the home run. Vargas reached base 3 out of 4 times, and his on-base percentage went down. So, like, there's a lot of things that this team has, and I think that's where they're going to live this year. Is obviously, it's easy to get excited when things are going your way, but there's a mix of veterans with chips on their shoulder. There's a mix of the guys that have been on the Dodgers that have their own chips on their shoulder because of what happened last year and because of what happened other years in the past. And then you got these young guys who are trying to prove themselves, and it's a good mix. And that's just what we saw last night, and what we should be expecting to see the rest of the year.
Yeah, and Dontrell said he didn't use the phrase turning point, but I can't remember his exact wording, but he talked about how we're going to look back at this game as a notable game in this season, that something changed, and whatever that is, and maybe the 5th game of the season is too early to have a turning point, but you can't maintain quite that energy for 162 games probably, but I do think celebrating each other's success, celebrating the success of the other guy, I think makes it easier to maintain that. It doesn't have to be manufactured. And sometimes, the Padres of 2020, like some of it just felt like it was, okay, we got to be fired up. Let's be fired up. And, when a guy you love hits his first home run for his new team, it's easy to be fired up, and we'll see what happens on June 17th when, there's nobody's getting their first home run, hopefully. Nobody's, it's a different game. And right now, maybe it is easier to be that fired up. And I don't even necessarily need them to maintain that, but I do feel like, I like the freight train celebration that David Peralta brought with him. His nickname is the Freight Train. And, I think got to get the whistles. I went to BYU, and I don't know if you probably don't remember because you were like 6 years old or something. BYU had a linebacker named Rob Morris when I was at BYU, Rob Freight Train Morris. And they actually made these wooden freight train whistles and handed them out at BYU games. And so you could blow the whistle whenever Rob Morris made a tackle. I would love to see the Dodgers do freight train whistles, wooden freight train whistles as a giveaway because it would probably be just as annoying as the thunder sticks that the Angels do, but that's okay. It's okay to be annoying when it's my thing, but I don't like Peralta has brought an energy. Heyward's brought an energy. JD's brought an energy. And there were risks of having so much roster turnover, but I do think maybe it's a good thing to have a lot of different personalities because it is new. James Outman is brand new. And so it's easy to be excited for him. And I think it'll still be easy to be excited for Outman in June when he's, chasing Rookie of the Year, and excited for Heyward in August, when he's playing a big role, even though it's not a starting role like he's used to. I think they can figure out ways to maintain something like this energy. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to watch. It kind of reminded me of the bubble machine days a little bit.
Yeah, like I said, it's one of those where every guy individually has, something they're playing for more than just, beyond paycheck or anything else. And combine that with a team that has something to play for, knowing that, last year was a big disappointment and there's been other disappointments here in the last few years. And obviously not everyone's been around for that, but just in general, like Dodgers are kind of not synonymous, but to a certain extent synonymous with, being good in the regular season, not getting it done in the postseason to, depending how you feel, but that's a general sentiment around, maybe some casual fans. So yeah, everyone has something to play for. And I think when that's there and there is, like I said, new personalities, Outman and Vargas are the young guys, Heyward, Peralta, Martinez are the guys, Peralta wants to be in the playoffs just in general, World Series too. Heyward and Martinez have won one, but they're also, considered to be on the back end of their career, and they want to prove that wrong. And that combines into some fun. And yeah, like real quick, last point, I really do like the freight train. It reminds me of driving by truck drivers and going like that to get them to honk the horn, but I like it as a freight train as well. So yeah, it's fun. And when they're putting up every game I've been to, they scored at least 8 runs. So it's been fun every time I've been there.
Yeah, and like I said yesterday, the lesson here is Vince needs to go to more games. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm about to pop this up. This is what I'm talking about, a wooden freight train whistle. This is a picture taken from Amazon. This one is $10.49. Amazon, you can get a free Prime delivery. And so it's you just blow in that thing, makes a freight train sound. So Dodgers should do a giveaway. If a member of the Dodgers promo team is watching this, there's my idea. You don't even got to give me credit for it. No, give me credit for it. That would be cool too. In fact, on one of the sides, I wanted to say this was Jeff's idea. So that's all I ask. We're going to come back in a minute and talk about a little bit of a negative thing. Max Muncy has struggled so far this season, and we're going to talk about his offensive and defensive struggles. So please continue to keep it locked on Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Ultimate Pro Baseball GM. Pro Baseball GM is the coolest game I've played in a long time. I think I'd be a really good Major League general manager. And so far, every Major League owner disagrees, but everybody playing against me in Pro Baseball GM definitely gets where I'm coming from, because I am kicking their trash. And all you got to do, you download this game, and you can, the game's called Pro Baseball GM, and you can do everything about being a general manager. You're hiring coaches and staff, you're scouting and drafting players, you're managing egos and, injuries and everything. Basically run an entire baseball team, an entire franchise, and it's all in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Baseball GM is completely free, and you can play it offline, on the go, as you want and when you want to. So, and like I said, we're playing in a group against other Locked On hosts, and I was a better podcast host than them. Well, guess what? I'm better at GMing than them too. And Locked On Dodgers listeners get 100% free boost to your franchise when using the promo Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit probaseballgm.com or scan the code that's on your screen right now if you're watching on YouTube, or just look it up in the app stores. That's probaseballgm.com. Ultimate Baseball GM. Start your dynasty today. All right, we are back. I want to thank you one more time for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. This last topic we're going to talk about, a little bit of a bummer after a 13-4 win. I still feel bad that we didn't mention Trace Thompson's name yesterday. Trace had a big 3 home run game over the weekend, and it's that's the downside of doing that on the weekend when we don't the 2 days we don't do shows. And there was so much to talk about from the weekend we didn't really get to Trace, and ultimately, very happy for him to have that game. Like I said when I did my episode about worrying about Trace Thompson, I hope he proves me wrong. I am nothing but rooting for Trace Thompson, and so that was great to see, and I hope that he can continue to do that. We'll see a month into the season. We'll look at where he's at and how things, if that 3 home run game was the start of something big or an anomaly. But as somebody whose game we hope is an anomaly is Max Muncy. Obviously, Muncy went 0 for 5 with 5 strikeouts on opening day, and he hasn't done a ton better. He did hit a couple balls hard. Like, he's had, I think, 3 hard hit outs, but he hadn't taken a walk until this game on Monday. He walked twice in this game. Defensively, he's been a little bit, he had the error that the ball ended up hitting him in the testicular region that caused him to miss a game. And he had this RBI double by Elias Diaz on Monday night that hit him in the glove. And, you'd like to see him at least lay out for it and keep the ball in the infield. So there's been some offensive struggles. There's been some defensive struggles. And Vince, are you worried about Max Muncy?
Not yet. We've seen him struggle before. Even last year, the struggles offensively, at least, once he figured it out, he was solid. His overall numbers last year got up to respectable on the OPS of 713, not great, 21 homers, whatever. But defensively, I don't know if I'm worried, but it's just one of those where, Max Muncy is a guy that we've seen is a little bit more emotional than some other guys in sense of, I don't want to say he's letting his offense go to his defense or vice versa, but he is a guy that, is emotional, not in a bad way, just in the sense of like he wants to be good. And when he's not playing well or when he's not, doing well, you can see that he's frustrated and, that makes sense. So I'm not worried. It's super early. I guess the positive way you could look at it is that he struck out 5 times on opening day, and he's only struck out 4 times total since then. So, if you want to, look at some positives, and like I said, the 2 walks last night, I think that was the most concerning before last night, is that he hadn't walked. And when Max Muncy's going right, even if he's not hitting, he's still on base percentage 350 plus just based on walks. We haven't had that with him so far this year. So it was good seeing that. So yeah, I'm not concerned, but it is one now where I'm like thinking like, okay, Miguel Vargas is looking fine at second base, but can he play third base just in case down the line something does happen and they, maybe even want to swap him or something like that. Who knows? But that's way, way down the line. I don't expect that to happen, but it just gets some wheels turning sometimes.
Yeah. And your optimistic way of looking at it, honestly, is my natural way of looking at it. Because 0 for 5 with 5 strikeouts. Yeah, that game sucks, but you just put that behind you and it happened. And what happens next? And yeah, his strikeout rate has been more reasonable. And for me, one of the big differences is in that first game, he chased a lot of bad pitches, and his strikeout in Monday's game in the first inning, second inning, one of those innings, he struck out looking on a full count pitch. It was more of a classic Max Muncy strikeout of having too good of an eye. And, in this case, yeah, the pitch was on the corner. We've seen in the past, Max Muncy does get a lot of strikes off the inside part of the plate called against him. And that's what he thought happened in this one. It wasn't, it was a good pitch. But it was a little bit more good Muncy, even though he struck out. And then he did take a couple walks. Seems like the eye is coming back and he has hit the ball hard. Last year when he was struggling, he wasn't even hitting the ball very hard when he was hitting it. And so, there have definitely been signs for me that he's going to be okay. I did notice, I don't know if you saw this, but the Dodgers have Michael Busch playing some third base in AAA now. They're going to start having him play third, which, he's going to need to add that to his toolbox just if he's going to be a utility player. But, it could also be, for the future, a Muncy-less future, whether that comes this season or later. It's I like Vargas at second base. I'm not really interested in him moving to third base. And I don't think they probably are either. I think they want him to be comfortable at second and hit the ball. But yeah, the defense from Muncy, he's not going to win a Gold Glove there at third. Although we said the same thing at first, and he actually did turn into the best defensive first baseman in baseball. But chances are Muncy, I think he's going to be a solid defensive third baseman, but there will be plays like we saw on Monday where, yeah, you probably ought to knock that down at least. And he just doesn't. But overall, my level of concern is pretty darn low with Muncy. Even with Chris Taylor's homer on Monday night, I think my level of concern with Taylor is much higher. Just because like I've said before, when Taylor's struggling, you wonder how he's ever hit the ball, watching him swing the bat. And, he did put a really good swing on that home run, and it reminded you, I mean, it had that same kind of trajectory as his wild card game home run, just kind of a line drive that when he hit it, you're like, okay, hope that is high enough to get out. And, but yeah, Muncy, I just feel like he's going to be fine. I feel like he's going to break out sometime in the next week. He's going to have a 2 home run game, and it'll just be, 3 months from now, we'll be looking and say, wait, did we really do an episode about Max Muncy struggling? Because he's looking like he's probably going to make the All-Star team. That's kind of my feeling about what's going to happen with Muncy this year.
Yeah. One note on the Michael Busch thing, what I did like is that they said when he does play, he's going to work between first, third, and second. But when he does play a position, he's going to play it for 2-3 games in a row, which is cool. Get him. Obviously, when he comes to the majors, if he can play multiple positions, he might not play the same position. But if he can get, if he's not 100% comfortable at third, and he's still probably not 100% comfortable at second, and then, first base is more where he's been comfortable, where he's played since college. But it's a cool little, twist that the Dodgers added that I don't remember seeing in the past with some of these guys that move around.
Yeah. So hopefully they can, because Bush can hit. I'd love for them to find a place for him in the big leagues. And chances are there's going to be an injury at some point this season that does make them need Michael Bush. And the more positions he can play, the better. He's also played some left field, obviously. And so, whatever, I mean, they have 6 outfielders right now. So chances are higher that they'll need somebody in the infield than the outfield, but anything can happen. So other little updates, Tony Gonsolin update, right?
Yeah, Tony Gonsolin threw a bullpen session with an up and down, said he was fine. He's going to throw a live batting practice this week, and then after that, he should progress to rehab stance. But he's not going to go in the minors. He's going to go pitch at Camelback Ranch against whoever's still there from the organization. Robert said probably like 2 or 3 there. Gonsolin said he'd need about 4 to be fully stretched out, but that doesn't mean 4 to be ready to come back. That's just, for him, how he feels to be fully stretched out. So, yeah, Grove will get at least 2 more starts, I would imagine, probably 3 before we see Gonsolin come back. But, Gonsolin said everything feels good and that he's going to stay taped up at that ankle the rest of the year probably.
Yeah, so hopefully he'll be back soon, although Grove pitched really well, especially for a guy. He was sick. We found out afterwards he almost couldn't even make the start because he's been sick all week. But he took the ball, and Dave Roberts said he thinks that's why he faded a little bit in the 5th inning. And even with that, the Rockies needed Mark Carlson's help. We don't need to rehash that again. But, so they got 4 2/3 from Grove. And so if even that, I don't remember if the double play was, no, it might have just been 4+.
Yeah.
And so even if Gonsolin's only stretched out to 5, that's probably about what they're expecting from that spot in the rotation right now anyway. So, yeah, hopefully he'll be back soon. I think that's all the updates we had, right?
Yes.
All right. You got anything else before we wrap this thing up?
No, I'm hoping my streak continues tonight.
Yeah, I hope so too. Yeah, go get yourself a hoodie tonight. Check out the Gametime app if you need to get last minute tickets to tonight's game. Check out all our
Gametime has been the cheapest so far this season. I've bought off them twice already.
Awesome. Yeah, check out all our sponsors, guys. Good stuff, and it helps us out. When you use our promo code, they know that people listening to our show, or at least our network, are using it, and that makes them like advertising with us, and that's better for everybody. And by everybody, I mean me and Vince. So thank you all for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every morning. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball. Win your league by listening to Matt and Dom every day as they bring you the best fantasy draft strategies. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can, if you're not watching or listening to Locked On Dodgers every weekday morning, we'd love if you add 1 or 2 days a month to your rotation. Obviously, please subscribe wherever you are. Click the little bell or whatever it is on YouTube that notifies you when a new episode is out. Even if you don't usually watch us on YouTube, please go there and subscribe. That would be awesome. You can find us on Instagram and on Twitter at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at Vince Samperio. I'm on Twitter at Snidog, and the DMs are open in all of those places. Our email address is lockedondodgers@gmail.com. And our phone number for voicemails or text messages is 323-863-LOCK, 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good one.